My canine dog can find your child.
The frozen blood on his son's torn jacket told Sheriff Ethan Carter everything and nothing. It had been 3 days. 72 hours since 8-year-old Lucas Carter vanished on his walk home from Pine Ridge Elementary. The kind of walk every child in town had taken safely for decades. The jacket lay half-buried along a narrow trail at the forest's edge, its sleeve ripped open like it had caught on something sharp. The blood had frozen dark and stiff, soaked deep into the fabric. Ethan dropped to his knees in the snow. For a long moment, no one spoke. Not the deputies standing behind him, not the volunteers clutching thermoses with shaking hands. Not even the wind dared to move through the pines. The forest stood there, tall, silent, like it was watching. 3 days ago, Ethan had still been the man with answers. The man with a badge, a radio, a command post, and a plan. He had told Lucas that morning, "Stick to the road, buddy. I'll see you at dinner." Now dinner had gone cold 3 nights in a row. A state K-9 unit arrived at dawn. Their handlers were confident, professional. These dogs had tracked fugitives, missing hikers, even bodies pulled from rivers. They lowered their noses to the jacket. For a few hopeful seconds, Ethan felt his heart lift. Then the dogs froze. One whimpered. Another backed away, nails scraping against ice. A third let out a low, frightened sound Ethan had never heard from a trained animal before. They all stopped at the exact same line, an invisible border where the trees thickened and the trail disappeared into shadow. "Sir," one handler said quietly, "they won't go in." Ethan stood up so fast his knees nearly buckled. "What do you mean they won't?" "They're refusing," the handler said, uneasy. "I've never seen this." A deputy leaned close, whispered, "It's like they hit a wall." Ethan's jaw tightened. "It's just woods," he snapped. "There's no damn monster out there." But even as he said it, something old and instinctive stirred in his chest. The kind of fear men don't talk about. The kind that comes from knowing you are no longer the strongest thing in the room. Snow began to fall harder. Thick flakes spiraled down, muffling sound. Sunset came early, swallowed by clouds. Every minute the temperature dropped, Lucas's chances dropped with it. "Expand the perimeter," Ethan ordered. "Grid search, double shifts. I don't care what it costs. Time 400. We keep going." Then, a hush rippled through the crowd. From between the trees, someone was coming out of the forest. She was young, wrapped in a worn leather coat. Snow clung to her dark hair. At her side moved something large, very large, a gray wolf, massive, silent, its amber eyes calm, unblinking. "My wolf can find your son," she said. She placed something at Ethan's feet. Lucas's sneaker, still dry, still warm. "Who are you?" "Sarah Miller," she said. "I live at the edge of the woods." "And why would the forest listen to you?" She looked at the trees, then at the wolves. "Because the forest doesn't answer to badges." But it remembers. But it remembers. The words lingered in the air long after Sarah Miller stopped speaking. Ethan Carter stared at the sneaker at his feet. His mind refused to accept what his eyes already knew. He picked it up with shaking hands. Lucas had begged for those shoes, blue with white laces, because another kid at school had the same pair. Ethan had teased him about it that morning, promised they'd talk about new ones over the weekend. The weekend never came. "Sir," a deputy murmured behind him, "we should bag that for evidence." Ethan didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on Sarah. "You're saying," he said, forcing control into his voice, "that you found this... where?" "In the trees," Sarah replied. "Not far from where your dog stopped." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone scoffed. Another crossed themselves. The wolf beside Sarah remained perfectly still. Its breath rose in soft white clouds. Ethan straightened. Every inch the sheriff again. "Ma'am, this is an active missing child investigation. If you have information, you need to tell us everything you know, right now." Sarah tilted her head slightly, studying him. "I tried. 3 days ago. That landed harder than a slap." Ethan remembered her now, standing at the edge of the command post, rain in her hair, saying quietly that she could help. He remembered how tired he'd been, how irritated, how quickly he'd waved her off. "You brought a wild animal into a crisis scene," he said. "What did you expect me to do?" "I expected you to listen," she answered. No anger, just fact. The wolf shifted its weight, paws crunching softly in the snow. Several deputies stepped back, instinctively. "That thing is dangerous," the deputy chief snapped. "This is Montana, not a fairy tale." Sarah's eyes flicked to him, then back to Ethan. "His name is Shadow," she said, "and he hasn't hurt anyone. Not once." Shadow's gaze met Ethan's. No challenge, no threat, just awareness. Steady, unnerving. "Why you?" Ethan asked quietly. "Why my son?" Sarah looked toward the forest, where the last light was being swallowed whole. Time 900 shown. Because Lucas noticed things other people didn't. Ethan felt his stomach drop. "What things?" She hesitated, just for a second. Then a radio crackled. "Sheriff, storm's moving faster than expected. Visibility's dropping. We need to pull people back." Ethan clenched his teeth. Every instinct screamed no. He looked at the volunteers, the shaking hands, the fear men tried not to show. If they kept going blind, someone else would get hurt. "You said your wolf can find my son." "Yes." "And you're sure?" "I am." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Then you'll do it my way. You come to the station. We coordinate. No." The word was soft, but absolute. "I don't bring Shadow into cages or concrete," she said. "And I don't take directions from people who don't understand the forest. You don't get to make demands here." Sarah stepped closer, close enough for Ethan to see the scar along her jaw. "You don't get to waste time. Not if you chiefs want him alive. Silence fell again, thicker than the snow. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. Ethan closed his eyes, just for a moment. Lucas's grin, his laugh, the weight of that jacket. When he opened his eyes, something had shifted. What do you need? You, Sarah said. Alone, no radios, no weapons, no backup. Absolutely not. Enough. And if I go with you, Ethan said, and you're wrong, then arrest me, Sarah said. Blame me. Do whatever helps you sleep. Shadow stepped forward, sniffed the air around Ethan, evaluating. But if I'm right, she said, you have to trust what you don't control. The forest, the storm, every modern tool had failed. He unhooked his radio, dropped it into the snow, then his sidearm. I'm coming. Then don't look back. She turned toward the trees. Shadow moved with her, already fading into the dark. Ethan took one last breath and followed them into the woods. Then don't look back. Sarah's words echoed in Ethan Carter's head as the trees closed in behind them. The forest swallowed sound the way water swallowed light. Within 50 yards, the noise from the search crews faded to nothing. No radios, no boots crunching in formation. Just the soft hiss of falling snow and the steady rhythm of Shadow's paws cutting a path through the drifts. Ethan forced himself not to turn around. 3 months earlier, he would have laughed at this moment. He'd come to Pine Ridge from Chicago with a resume that spoke for itself. Major cases solved, commendations earned, a reputation for control. When the mayor welcomed him with coffee and small-town smiles, Ethan had nodded politely and thought, this will be easy. Back then, people talked about the woods the way others talked about church, with reverence, with caution. One afternoon during his first week, the mayor had said, you should know, Sheriff, these forests have rules of their own. Ethan had smiled, friendly, firm. Trees don't make rules, he'd replied. People do. Now, as his boots sank deeper into the snow and the shadows thickened, that certainty felt embarrassingly thin. His watch buzzed once, flickered, then went dark. Radio's dead, he muttered, instinctively reaching for it, before remembering he'd dropped it behind. Sarah didn't slow down. It always happens about here. Always? Ethan asked, then stopped himself. Sorry. You told me not to. Question, she finished. I know. Shadow stopped suddenly, nose low to the ground. His ears twitched, swiveled, listening. Ethan's breath caught. What is it? Sarah raised a hand. This is where your people turned me away. 3 days ago, she said, I told you the boy was alive, that he went off the trail on purpose. Ethan swallowed hard. We had protocols, he said. Sarah looked back at him, not angry. Somehow that made it worse. Your protocols don't belong out here, she said. They never have. The trees grew closer. Branches arched overhead like ribs. Shadow circled a fallen log, pawed once, stepped back. Sarah brushed snow aside. A backpack. Lucas's. He hid it, she said. Not lost. Hidden. Running, Ethan said. Not lost. Shadow rumbled low. Someone else was out here. Then Ethan saw them. Eyes. Watching. Waiting. They're guarding something, Sarah said. Ethan felt it then. Deep. Certain. Whatever had taken Lucas wasn't an accident. And whatever truth waited in these woods had been buried for a very long time. The last sound of civilization died behind them. It happened gradually, then all at once. The faint hum of generators faded. The crunch of distant boots disappeared. Even the wind seemed to lose interest in moving. Ethan Carter realized, with a tightening in his chest, the forest had closed its doors. Shadow moved ahead with quiet certainty, broad shoulders cutting a narrow path through knee-deep snow. Sarah followed a few steps behind him, steady, unhurried. Ethan struggled to keep up. His breath came harder. The cold bit through layers meant for patrol cars and parking lots. Not this. His watch vibrated once, then went blank. Damn it, he muttered. Sarah didn't turn around. It won't work past this line. What line? Ethan asked. Too late. She paused. The one you don't see until you cross it. Shadow stopped. Ethan nearly ran into him. The wolf lowered his head, sniffing the snow. Slow, deliberate. Not fear. Focus. Sarah crouched beside him, brushed the snow away. A small red backpack, tucked beneath a fallen pine limb. Straps folded inward. Hidden. Ethan dropped to his knees. The cold punched through instantly. Lucas's. He saw the frayed zipper pull, the one he'd promised to fix, and never did. He didn't drop this, Sarah said. He placed it. He's 8, Ethan said, shaking his head. He wouldn't. He would, Sarah said gently, if he was scared and thinking. That cut deeper than panic ever could. Ethan pictured his son, quiet, observant, noticing things adults missed. He'd called it sensitivity. Now he wondered if it was something else. Shadow rumbled low. We're not alone, Sarah said. Ethan felt it before he saw it. Eyes, one pair, then another, then more. Wolves, watching. They're circling us, Ethan said. No, Sarah replied. They're observing. Shadow stood like a host, calm, alert. Is that bad? Ethan asked. It depends, Sarah said, on why you're here. The wind shifted. Pine. And something metallic beneath it. Blood. Or rust. The forest grew older, thicker, silent. No birds. No life. Why does this place feel wrong? Because people stopped listening here, Sarah said. They reached a clearing, Snow churned, broken, adult footprints. Blood. Not Lucas, Sarah said quickly. She lifted a scrap of fabric, a faded logo. Hale Timber and Milling. Ethan remembered. Files closed too fast. Complaints dismissed. My son didn't wander, he said. No, Sarah replied. He found something. The wolves tightened their circle. This wasn't a search anymore. It was an unveiling. And once the forest chose to reveal the truth, there would be no easy way to put it back. Do you think Ethan should keep following the truth, even if it destroys the town he's sworn to protect? 1. Yes. Always. 2. Only if his son is safe. Or 3. Some truths cost too much. Comment your number below. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off the scrap of fabric in Sarah's hand. The logo was faded, but unmistakable. Hale Timber and Milling. Everyone in Pine Ridge knew the name. Little League jerseys. A new roof on the high school gym. Donations to search and rescue fundraisers. On paper, they were the backbone of the town. Good jobs, steady paychecks, stability, the kind bankers liked, the kind that slipped through compliance filings without much scrutiny. Ethan had signed off on reports, trespassing complaints, environmental violations, problems that quietly went away. He'd told himself it wasn't corruption, just compromise. Just keeping the town running. Now that compromise lay frozen in his hand. This doesn't make sense, he said hoarsely. Why would Hale's people be this deep in the woods? Sarah looked at him, unreadable. Because this part of the forest, she said, isn't on any official map. Shadow circled the clearing, nose low. He stopped, pawed once. Ethan followed. His heart pounded, rate slow. More blood. Not splattered. Smeared. Someone had been hurt badly. Dragged. Or stumbled. Boot prints. Heavy. Panicked. Leading downhill. Toward a ravine. They were chasing someone, Ethan said. Yes, Sarah replied. And someone was trying not to be seen. Shadow growled. Low. Not at the forest. At Ethan. What? He smells fear on you, Sarah said. Ethan laughed bitterly. Good. Means he's honest. Lucas was here, Sarah said. After this. How can you tell? Because he stepped where it was safe. He avoided the blood. He watched. Ethan felt hollow. What did he see? Sarah lifted a fallen branch, a shell casing, half rusted, stamped with a serial number. Gunfire. Yes. This isn't an accident, Ethan said. It's a cover-up. Snow fell harder. The world blurred. Then, a voice. Crackling. Distorted. Sheriff Carter, the voice said calmly. You always were predictable. Marcus Hale. If you want your boy, Marcus continued, bring the girl to the old mill. Sarah closed her eyes. Just once. You don't touch my son. Relax, Marcus laughed. He's alive, for now. He noticed something he shouldn't have. That makes him inconvenient. The line went dead. Silence rushed back. This is about you, Ethan said. My father knew where things were buried, Sarah replied. Evidence and guilt. We call the feds, Ethan said. There is no daylight for Lucas if we wait. The truth settled between them. Tell me what I need to know, Ethan said. We're running out of time. And beneath the snow, truths buried for years were beginning to surface, whether Pine Ridge was ready or not. Ethan followed Sarah down a narrow cut between two ridges. The ground sloped just enough to make every step uncertain. The snow here was thinner, packed hard by wind and time. Frozen earth showed through. Shadow moved ahead, weaving with purpose, stopping now and then to read the ground the way a man reads a map. They reached a stand of young aspens, pale trunks, scarred by old carvings. Here, Ethan leaned in. At first he saw nothing, just broken branches, scattered twigs. Sarah crouched, rearranged a few sticks. The pattern snapped into focus. 3 lines angled away from a circle. Another set crossed. Broken. It's a game, Ethan said. Kids make these all the time. Not this way, Sarah replied. I taught them these signs last summer, at the town fair. Most laughed, most forgot. Lucas didn't. She traced one line, carefully. Bad men, guns, don't trust. Ethan's knees buckled. He steadied himself against a tree, his breath shallow. My son was warning us. Yes, Sarah said. He wasn't hiding. He was guiding. Shadow's ears flicked. A soft electronic chirp. Artificial. Wrong. Sheriff Carter, the voice said. If you want to see your boy again, bring the girl to the old mill, alone. Marcus Hale, you've got 1 hour. The line went dead. Ethan turned to Sarah, fear and fury tangled together. He's using you. Yes, she said. This is about what my family knows. Where the ground remembers, she said. Where paper and bones were buried when no one was watching. You're not going alone, Ethan said. I have to, Sarah replied. You couldn't protect the truth when it was inconvenient. That's not an insult. It's a lesson. Shadow pawed the snow. Another sign. Lucas passed here less than an hour after the shooting. He stayed high. He listened. He's so small and so careful. Ethan felt the choice settle, heavier than any badge. Promise me, Sarah said. Tell the truth. I promise, Ethan said. Sarah stepped into the trees, dissolving into shadow. Shadow lingered, measured Ethan, then followed her. Ethan stood alone, with the signs his son left behind. Lucas hadn't stumbled into danger. He had recognized it. And now, time itself had drawn a line in the snow, I promise. The words still hung in the air after Sarah disappeared into the trees. Ethan Carter stood alone, staring at the place where she had vanished. Snow swallowed her footprints almost instantly. The forest had a way of erasing people. Ethan had spent his career believing evidence always remained. Fibers, prints, records. Out here, truth dissolved fast if you didn't fight for it. Shadow's absence felt louder than gunfire. Ethan exhaled slowly, forcing himself to think. Marcus Hale had chosen the old mill for a reason. It sat at the edge of a frozen creek, half collapsed, condemned. No patrol cars in winter, no witnesses, no cameras. At least none officially approved. A place where men who thought in terms of liability felt safe doing unforgivable things. Ethan started moving. He didn't follow Sarah. Not yet. He circled wide, took the high ground, the way he'd learned in Chicago, back lots and alleys. The forest resisted him. Branches snagged his coat. Roots threatened his legs. Time 1200 mums. He kept going. Near the mill, he heard voices, low, male, confident. Said she'd come alone. She will, Marcus Hale replied. People like her always do. Ethan crouched behind a fallen spruce. His heart hammered. 2 armed men, rifles slung casually, floodlights glaring against the snow. Then he saw her. Sarah stepped into the open, hands visible, calm, unhesitating. God help me, Ethan thought. Marcus Hale emerged. Clean boots, a deal-maker's smile. Right on time. Where's the boy? Alive, cold, scared. That depends on you. Rage flooded Ethan's veins. Too many guns, too much risk. Your father was stubborn, Marcus said. Truth doesn't rot, Sarah replied. It waits. Where is it? Silence. Time 200 pounds. A rifle butt struck. Blood darkened the snow. 10 minutes, Marcus said. A growl. Shadow. The wolf waited, watching. Let the boy go first, Sarah said. Marcus hesitated. Bring him out. A door creaked. Dad! Ethan nearly collapsed. Take him and leave. The girl stays. This moment would decide everything. Ethan stepped into the light. Marcus Hale, he said. This ends now. Every gun turned. Sarah understood. The forest held its breath. Every gun snapped toward Ethan at once. Floodlights caught his face, pale against the snow, breath fogging in sharp bursts. He kept his hands open, palms visible, the way he'd taught rookies, back when rules still mattered. Easy, Marcus Hale said, lifting a hand. Sheriff Carter, I was wondering when you'd show yourself. Lucas sobbed. Dad. Ethan stepped forward and stopped. A rifle clicked. Let him go, Ethan said. This is between you and me. Marcus smiled thinly. No. This is between your badge and my balance sheet. He nodded. Lucas was yanked back. The blanket slipped, thin arms trembling from cold. Ethan felt something tear loose inside his chest. Sarah moved first. "I'll take you where the records are," she said, "but you release the boy. Now." Marcus studied her, calculating. "You really are your father's daughter," he said. "Always willing to pay the cost yourself." He gestured again. Lucas was dragged toward the mill door. Ethan lunged, and shadow exploded from the darkness. The wolf struck without sound. No reckless charge, no wild frenzy. He hit the nearest guard's arm, clamping down just hard enough to shatter grip, not flesh. The rifle hit the snow. A second guard spun, and Shadow was gone. Then reappeared behind him like a living shadow, teeth snapping inches from his throat. Chaos detonated. Men shouted. Floodlights swung. Snow churned under boots. A gun went off, deafening in the open air. "Hold your fire!" Marcus screamed. "I need her alive!" Ethan ran, not toward Marcus, toward his son. He tackled the guard holding Lucas, rolled hard. The world shrank to breath and bone, to the scream of cold air in his lungs, a blow across his shoulder, then another. But his hands found Lucas, pulling him close, shielding him. "I've got you!" Ethan gasped. "I've got you!" Lucas clung to him, shaking. "Dad, I didn't tell them, I swear." "I know," Ethan choked. "I know." A sharp crack. Sarah cried out. Ethan looked up, just in time. She collapsed near the mill door. Blood bloomed across her side, dark against white. For a split second, everything froze. Shadow's howl tore the night open. Not anger, grief, raw, piercing. The generator sputtered. Lights flickered like a failing heartbeat. Marcus backed toward the mill, fear cracking his composure. "Get inside," he yelled. "Now!" Shadow stood between Ethan and the men, hackles raised, eyes burning gold. He didn't attack again. He didn't have to. Time. Ethan dragged Lucas behind a fallen beam, wrapped his coat around him. "Stay here. Don't move." He crawled to Sarah, hands slick with blood. "Stay with me," he begged. "You hear me?" Sarah's eyes opened, breath shallow. "Lucas?" she whispered. "He's safe," Ethan said. "You did it." A faint smile touched her lips. "Good." From the mill, engines revving, men retreating deeper, doors slamming, equipment dragged across concrete. The hunters had turned into animals looking for cover. Shadow paced, torn between Sarah and the fleeing men. Ethan pressed his hands to her wound. Pressure, breath, time. "We can't stay," he said. "We have to move." Sarah shook her head weakly. "They won't stop," she said. "Not unless the truth stops them." Ethan looked toward the mill, toward files, secrets, things he'd ignored for the sake of calm headlines and steady property values. He understood now. The cost hadn't been money. It had been blood. And the bill was finally due. Ethan's arms trembled as he lifted Sarah. She was lighter than he expected, her breath shallow, each rise of her chest uneven. Blood soaked into his jacket, steaming faintly in the brutal cold. Lucas stayed close, gripping the hem of Ethan's coat. Too quiet, too wide-eyed. Behind them the mill groaned. Not machinery. Wood. Old beams shifting. Metal screamed. Twisted. Unseen hands. The generator sputtered, coughed, then died. Floodlights snapped off, one by one. Darkness rushed in. Only moonlight remained, silver on snow. Marcus Hale had wanted control. Instead, he had woken something older. Shadow stood at the edge of the clearing, head low, ears flat. He lifted his muzzle and howled. Not a hunt. A signal. The answer came fast. From the trees. From the ridges. From places men never named. Howls. Layered. Rolling. Thunder in. Bone. Lucas pressed into Ethan's side. "Dad, are they mad?" Ethan swallowed. "No, buddy. They're awake." The men panicked. One tripped, reloaded with shaking hands. Another shouted into a dead radio. They fired blindly. Bark shattered. Branches exploded. But nothing charged. The wolves did not rush. They moved. Silent. Controlled. Strategic. Shadow slipped between shadows. Never still. Another wolf struck a sleeve. Fabric tore. Skin untouched. A man screamed. His weapon fell. Ethan understood. This was not chaos. It was restraint. "Stay down," Ethan shouted. "Drop the guns." One did. Another ran. The forest closed. "You think this changes anything?" Marcus shouted from the mill. His words fell hollow. Sarah stirred. "He doesn't understand," she whispered. "It's about balance. And memory." A timber cracked. The mill entrance collapsed. Snow, wood, finality. "The forest is moving," Lucas whispered. "It's responding." Marcus ran. Into the trees. The wolves parted. Not to kill, to allow. "It won't kill him," Sarah said. "It will make him stay." The howls faded. Snow fell gently. Silence returned. Finished silence. Ethan knelt. Exhausted. "Silence is how this started," Sarah said. "But it doesn't have to end that way." Shadow lay beside them. A living wall. Lucas touched his fur. The child exhaled. Far away, something closed. Marcus Hale would not return. Not the same. The forest had spoken. And the hardest part, time 400 spoons was still ahead. Because telling the truth costs more than bullets ever could. The forest did not chase Marcus Hale. That was the cruelest mercy of all. Ethan carried Sarah as far as his legs would allow. The cold began stealing strength from his hands. Shadow walked beside them, close enough that Ethan could feel the heat rolling from his body. Lucas stumbled along, silent now. Shock pulling him inward. His fingers clenched in Ethan's sleeve. Behind them, The mill groaned once more. Not machinery, fatigue. Then it went still. Snow drifted into the clearing, soft, innocent, erasing the chaos as if it had never been. Ethan stopped. The ground changed beneath his boots. Less snow, more earth. Shadow halted with him. "This is far enough," Sarah whispered. They stood at the mouth of a ravine. Narrow, steep. Roots lined its walls, thick as arms. The air smelled old, damp, metallic. A place the forest had never surrendered to light. "Marcus ran this way," Ethan said. "Yes," Sarah replied. "Men like him always believe there's another exit." Lucas hugged himself. "Is he coming back?" Sarah shook her head. "No." Stone shifted, not crashing, closing. "What's happening?" "The forest is deciding." Wolves emerged. Not many. Just enough. They formed a corridor. Silent. Unyielding. Shadow stood at the center, watching the dark below. Then Marcus screamed. Authority stripped away. Money gone. Only fear remained. "Help me!" Ethan stepped forward and stopped. "No," Sarah said. "This is not an execution." The scream ended. Then, coughing. "I'm alive!" Marcus cried. Roots shifted. Stone locked. Ethan understood. He had not been killed. He had been contained. "He'll live," Sarah said. "But there is no path back." "Is that fair?" Ethan knelt, met his son's eyes. "It's honest," he said. "And sometimes that's different." The wolves withdrew. Shadow last. Silence returned. Not empty. Complete. Ethan checked Sarah's wound. "We need a hospital," he said. "You're thinking clearly," Sarah smiled. "Took losing everything else." Lucas leaned against Shadow. "Safe. What happens next?" "Now you tell the truth." Ethan already knew. He would open the files, say the names, even if it cost him the badge, even if it burned the town down, because Lucas was alive, and Ethan had no excuse left. Morning did not arrive gently. It crept in slow and gray, filtered through heavy clouds clinging to the mountains like a warning that hadn't finished speaking. The storm had passed, but the cold stayed behind. Biting, unforgiving. Ethan Carter sat with his back against a tree. Legs numb, arms wrapped around Lucas. The boy slept in brief, shallow stretches, the kind of sleep that came only after fear had exhausted the body. Shadow lay beside them, broad, unmoving, a silent sentry. Every so often, he lifted his head, scanned the trees, then settled again. Sarah stirred just after dawn. Ethan noticed instantly. He leaned forward, careful. "Hey," he said softly. "Easy." Her eyes opened, slowly, focused, alive. "You stayed," she murmured. Ethan nodded. "Wasn't going anywhere." Lucas woke at the sound of her voice, sat up, blinked. Panic flashed, then eased when he saw them. "Miss Sarah?" he whispered. Sarah managed a faint smile. "You're safe. You did exactly what you were supposed to do." Lucas shook his head, tears rising. "I was scared." "I know," she said. "Being brave doesn't mean you aren't scared. It means you pay attention anyway." The words sank deep into Ethan's chest. When help finally came, it didn't arrive with sirens. It came quietly. 2 medics from a volunteer mountain rescue unit Sarah trusted. They moved efficiently, wrapped Sarah's wound, checked Lucas for frostbite, dehydration, shock. One nodded at Ethan. "He's lucky," the medic said. "And so is she." Ethan almost laughed. Luck felt like the wrong word. This had been survival, earned inch by inch, choice by choice. They did not see Marcus Hale again. No helicopters circled the ravine. No rescue teams were called. By the time authorities arrived hours later, snow and earth had sealed everything that needed sealing. The forest had already written its final report. Lucas reached the hospital that afternoon. He held Ethan's hand the entire drive. Silent, present, eyes tracking every turn like he needed proof the world still made sense. In the hospital room, warmth reached his bones. He sat in bed, wrapped in blankets, sipping lukewarm cocoa from a foam cup. A nurse checked his vitals, smiled gently. "You did real good out there." Lucas frowned, confused. "I just remembered things." Sarah arrived later, bandaged, pale, stable. She took the chair beside Lucas without ceremony. Shadow waited outside. Hospital rules bending just enough to let him stay near the door. Lucas studied her, then said, "I knew your wolf would come." "Why?" Sarah asked. "Because he listens," Lucas said. "Most grown-ups don't." Ethan turned away so they wouldn't see his eyes. That night, after Lucas finally slept, time 500 mems. Deep, real sleep. Ethan stood alone in the hallway. He stared at the scuffed linoleum floor. Not relieved, not triumphant, just stripped down to something honest. Sarah joined him, quietly. "He'll be different," she said. Ethan nodded. "So will I." "Most people go back," Sarah said, "to who they were." "I can't," Ethan replied. "Not after this." "Then don't," Sarah said. "Say what you didn't say before." Ethan thought of the files, the quiet approvals, meetings where he chose calm over conflict. He'd called it protection, but it had been comfort. His and the town's. "I will," he said. Lucas murmured in his sleep. Unintelligible. Ethan watched his chest rise and fall. Steady now, real. His son had gone into the forest a child. He came back something else. Not hardened, not broken. Aware. And Ethan knew, deep in his bones, awareness was the most dangerous thing of all. Dangerous to lies. Dangerous to silence. Dangerous to anyone who believed the truth could stay buried forever. The forest had let Lucas go, but it would not let the lie survive. Ethan Carter stood alone in his office long after sunset. The station was quiet in a way it never had been before. No radios chirping, no deputies joking in the hallway, no low hum of routine holding everything together. Snow tapped softly against the windows. Pine Ridge slept, unaware that the ground beneath it was about to shift. On Ethan's desk lay 3 folders. The first held incident reports tied to hail, timber, and milling, complaints softened by language, violations downgraded to clerical misunderstandings, dates adjusted, deadlines pushed, relevance quietly buried. The second folder held bank records, land use approvals, stamped through town council meetings, justified by jobs, tax stability, growth everyone liked to quote during election years. The third folder was thinner. It was the most dangerous one. Sarah had brought it that morning. No ceremony, no explanation. Inside were hand-drawn maps, coordinates, notes written by her father, streams redirected, waste buried, timber cuts disguised as natural erosion, level moderate. Proof the forest had been poisoned, slowly, deliberately. "This is enough," Ethan had said. "It has to be," Sarah replied, "because there won't be another chance." Now, hours later, Ethan opened his drawer. He removed his badge, turned it over in his hand, traced its worn edges. He had believed the badge meant protection, authority, control. It wasn't. It was a choice. Ethan placed it beside the folders and reached for the phone. He didn't call the mayor. He didn't call the county sheriff. He called the state attorney general. "My name is Ethan Carter," he said. "I am the sheriff of Pine Ridge, Montana, and I need to report ongoing criminal activity, environmental crimes, illegal land acquisition, obstruction of justice, corporate fraud. I have documentation." The line paused. "Sir, are you aware of the implications?" "Yes, rate slow," Ethan replied. "That's why I'm saying it." By morning the town buzzed. Unmarked vehicles rolled in. Quiet, efficient, investigators, environmental enforcement, financial auditors. No sirens. They didn't need them. Word spread faster than sound. By noon, Pine Ridge felt smaller than it ever had. Ethan stood before the town council. Faces hardened as he spoke. "There are records," he said. "There are consequences. Some of you knew, some suspected, all of you benefited. You're tearing this town apart." Ethan nodded. "It was already broken. I just stopped pretending." By afternoon, the headlines hit. Illegal logging exposed. Federal investigation. Sheriff steps down. Ethan signed his resignation. He didn't feel relieved. He felt clean. That evening, he came home. Lucas sat at the kitchen table, coloring. "Dad," Lucas asked, "are people mad at you?" "Some are." "Because you told the truth?" "Yes." Lucas nodded. "That's okay." "Why?" "Because the forest doesn't like lying. You said that once. Remember?" Ethan swallowed. He didn't remember saying it. But Lucas did. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Not angry, not gentle, watching. The town felt hollow once the investigations began. Pine Ridge still looked the same. Snowbanks along Main Street. The hardware store with its flickering neon sign. The diner opening at dawn. But something essential had gone quiet. Conversations stopped when people noticed Ethan walking by. Doors closed a little faster. Familiar faces carried new caution. Truth had weight, and Pine Ridge was learning how heavy it could be felt. Sarah Miller healed quickly, at least on the surface. The bullet had passed clean through, the doctor said. Muscle damage, no organ loss. She spent 3 nights in the small county hospital, refusing visitors except Ethan and Lucas, who came every afternoon with drawings folded carefully in his pocket. Wolves, trees, a boy and a man standing between them. On the 4th morning, Ethan found her outside the hospital, bundled in her coat, breath fogging in the cold. Shadow stood beside her, calm as ever, watching the road. "You're leaving," Ethan said. Sarah nodded. "Before people decide what I should become." Ethan understood. Reporters were already calling. Regional outlets, then national. Words like miracle and legend crept into headlines. People wanted something they could package. Something safe. Something inspiring that didn't demand change. "That's not who you are," Ethan said. "No," Sarah replied. "And it's not what the forest did." Lucas hovered a few steps away, unsure. Sarah noticed and knelt carefully, despite the sling. "Come here," she said. Lucas approached, held out a drawing. Shadow, larger than life, standing in front of a tree with deep roots. "For you," Lucas said, "so you remember us." Sarah took it gently. "I won't forget." Some bonds don't need maps. Shadow stepped forward, lowered his head so Lucas could reach his fur. Lucas hugged him. No fear, just warmth. "I knew you'd come," Lucas whispered. Shadow didn't move, but his tail brushed the snow once, slow, deliberate. "You could stay," Ethan said. Sarah looked past him, toward the tree line beyond the road. "Change is loud at first," she said. "Then it looks for something else to blame." A truck rolled by, slowed just enough for the driver to stare. Sarah waited until it passed. "The forest doesn't belong to the town," she said. "And I don't either." Ethan didn't argue. He'd learned better than that. They walked together to the edge of town. Asphalt gave way to packed dirt. Snow fell lightly, the kind that didn't erase footprints right away. "Thank you," Ethan said, "for my son." "For listening," Sarah replied. They stopped. Shadow turned once, fixed Ethan with a steady gaze. Not approval, not warning, recognition. Then Sarah stepped into the trees. The forest accepted her. No ceremony. Branches shifted. Snow fell. She was gone. Life moved on. Awkwardly. Unevenly. The mill was dismantled piece by piece. Contracts dissolved. Hale Timber's name vanished. Replaced by legal notices and remediation plans argued in long, tense meetings. Some families left, others stayed, angry, afraid of what rebuilding would cost. Ethan didn't attend most meetings. He took a job at the high school, part-time, security, maintenance, whatever was needed. It paid less. It felt right. No badge, no authority, just responsibility. Lucas returned to school quieter than before, but not withdrawn. He listened more than he spoke. Teachers noticed his patience, his attention to detail. Sometimes at recess, he stood near the fence and watched the trees, as if waiting for something to speak back. Weeks later, Ethan found Lucas on the porch steps. Time 2000 PM. Sketchbook on his knees. "Do you miss her?" Ethan asked. Lucas nodded. "But she's not gone." Ethan sat beside him. "How do you know?" Lucas pointed to the tree line. "Because the forest doesn't say goodbye," he said. "It just changes distance." A long, low howl drifted across the valley. Not close, not far. Ethan closed his eyes and let the sound settle into him. Some things leave so others can stay, and some truths once spoken never stop echoing. Winter settled into Pine Ridge with a patience that felt deliberate. Not the violent kind. Not roofs torn loose. Not cars buried overnight. But a steady cold. Watchful. Unavoidable. Snowbanks hardened along sidewalks. The mountains stood bare and honest against the sky. Nothing was hidden anymore. Ethan Carter noticed the change most in the silences. Mornings came without sirens. Evenings passed without shouting radios, without late-night knocks. The town still moved, still worked, still argued. But the easy assumptions were gone. People spoke more carefully now, as if words, once wasted, had regained their value. Ethan liked that. He spent his days fixing things no one had noticed were broken. A loose railing, a flickering light, small jobs, no authority, no excuses. Parents nodded in the hallways. Some avoided his eyes. Others offered quiet thanks. Lucas adjusted faster than anyone expected. He laughed again, softly, then fully. He slept through the night. But he also asked questions that made adults pause. Why didn't anyone say anything before? Ethan didn't answer right away. He had learned not to rush truths. Because saying something costs more than people think. Lucas thought about that. But it costs more not to. Ethan turned from the stove. His son hadn't repeated a lesson. He had learned it. The investigations continued quietly. No spectacle, No dramatic arrests. Just subpoenas, audits, court filings. Justice unfolding one signature at a time. The kind that doesn't feel right until the damage finally stops spreading. The ravine remained sealed. No rescues, no recoveries. Official reports called it unstable. The locals didn't argue. Some truths are safer left to the land. Ethan walked the edge of town most evenings, the same dirt road, the one Sarah took. He never crossed into the trees. He didn't need to. The forest had taught him where lines mattered. One night, Lucas joined him. "Do you think the forest is mad?" Ethan thought. About silence. About loss. About how close he'd come. "No," he said. "I think it's patient." They stood together, breath rising in twin clouds until the light faded. Change came slowly to Pine Ridge. New rules, new scrutiny, long thinking. Not everyone liked it. Fewer people pretended not to understand. That night, Ethan sat alone on the porch. The cold pressed in, sharp, clean. He thought about control, about safety. Control had never been safety. Honesty was. A howl drifted across the valley. Not close, not far. Ethan didn't stand, didn't move. He listened. Because some storms don't end with thunder. They end with quiet, and the choice of what kind of silence you're willing to live with. Spring came late to Pine Ridge. Snow lingered in the shadows long after the calendar insisted it should be gone. Ice still rimmed the creek in the mornings, cracking softly as the sun climbed higher. The forest, however, was changing. Buds appeared on branches that had looked dead for years. Moss brightened along the rocks. Life returned carefully, as if testing whether it was safe. Ethan Carter noticed it the way he noticed most things now, quietly. He and Lucas stood at the edge of town, where pavement gave way to dirt, and dirt to trees. The same place Sarah had disappeared into months earlier. The same place where Ethan learned control was an illusion, and listening was not. Lucas kicked at the ground, hands buried in his jacket pockets. He was taller now, not much, but enough. Enough that Ethan felt it in his chest. "Dad," Lucas said. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." Lucas hesitated. "If I see something wrong again, something everyone else pretends not to see." He swallowed. "What should I do?" Ethan felt the weight of the question settle into his bones. Once he would have answered with rules, with caution, with warnings about consequences. Those answers had almost cost him his son. He knelt eye to eye. "You tell the truth." His voice did not shake. "Even if your hands are shaking, even if people get angry, even if it costs you something." Lucas frowned. "What if it costs a lot?" Ethan thought of the badge, the job, the friends who still wouldn't meet his eyes. "Then," he said, "it probably matters." Lucas nodded slowly. "Okay." The wind moved through the trees. Not strong, not gentle, just present. A sound rose from deep in the forest. A howl, low, steady. Time 400 mams. Familiar. Lucas's face lit up. Not excitement. Recognition. That's Shadow, he said. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe. They didn't go closer. They didn't need to. Life in Pine Ridge went on. Reshaped, but intact. The investigations ended quietly. Charges filed. Settlements reached. Boundaries drawn where contracts once ruled. The forest gained protection. Written into law, not whispered. Ethan was never offered his badge back. He never asked. Instead, he taught night classes, safety, preparedness, how to notice what didn't belong. People didn't call him a hero. They called him honest. That was enough. One evening, something waited on the porch. A folded piece of bark, etched with a familiar symbol. 3 lines, branching from a circle. A message. What does it mean again? Lucas asked. Ethan traced the lines. It means someone passed through, he said, and wanted to be understood. They left the bark there, letting the wind take it when it was ready. Far beyond the town, the forest breathed. Trees grew, roots shifted, old scars healed, slowly, honestly. Somewhere, a girl walked where maps failed, and a wolf moved beside her. Listening. The forest did not forgive. It did not forget. It remembered. Every kindness, every cruelty, every choice to speak or stay silent. Ethan put his arm around Lucas's shoulders. The sun dipped behind the mountains. Whatever the world asked of his son next. Lucas would know what to do because the forest had taught them both the same lesson. Truth, once spoken, doesn't disappear. It takes root. Spring came late to Pine Ridge. Snow lingered in the shadows long after the calendar insisted it should be gone. Ice still rimmed the creek in the mornings, cracking softly as the sun climbed higher. The forest, however, was changing. Buds appeared on branches that had looked dead for years. Moss brightened along the rocks. Life returned carefully, as if testing whether it was safe. Ethan Carter noticed it the way he noticed most things now. Quietly. He and Lucas stood at the edge of town, where pavement gave way to dirt, and dirt to trees. The same place Sarah had disappeared into months earlier. The same place where Ethan learned control was an illusion, and listening was not. Lucas kicked at the ground, hands buried in his jacket pockets. He was taller now. Not much, but enough. Enough that Ethan felt it in his chest. "Dad," Lucas said, "can I ask you something?" "Always." Lucas hesitated. "If I see something wrong again, something everyone else pretends not to see." He swallowed. "What should I do?" Ethan felt the weight of the question settle into his bones. Once he would have answered with rules, with caution. with warnings about consequences. Those answers had almost cost him his son. He knelt eye to eye. "You tell the truth." His voice did not shake. "Even if your hands are shaking, even if people get angry, even if it costs you something." Lucas frowned. What if it costs a lot? Ethan thought of the badge, the job, the friends who still wouldn't meet his eyes. "Then," he said, "it probably matters." Lucas nodded slowly. "Okay." The wind moved through the trees, not strong, not gentle, just present. A sound rose from deep in the forest. A howl, low, steady. Time 400 mams. Familiar. Lucas's face lit up. Not excitement. Recognition. "That's Shadow," he said. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe." They didn't go closer. They didn't need to. Life in Pine Ridge went on, reshaped, but intact. The investigations ended quietly. Charges filed, settlements reached, boundaries drawn where contracts once ruled. The forest gained protection, written into law, not whispered. Ethan was never offered his badge back. He never asked. Instead, he taught night classes, safety, preparedness, how to notice what didn't belong. People didn't call him a hero. They called him honest. That was enough. One evening, something waited on the porch. A folded piece of bark, etched with a familiar symbol. 3 lines, branching from a circle. A message. "What does it mean again?" Lucas asked. Ethan traced the lines. "It means someone passed through," he said, "and wanted to be understood." They left the bark there, letting the wind take it when it was ready. Far beyond the town, the forest breathed. Trees grew, roots shifted, old scars healed, slowly, honestly. Somewhere, a girl walked where maps failed, and a wolf moved beside her. Listening. The forest did not forgive. It did not forget. It remembered. Every kindness, every cruelty, every choice to speak or stay silent. Ethan put his arm around Lucas's shoulders. The sun dipped behind the mountains. Whatever the world asked of his son next. Lucas would know what to do because the forest had taught them both the same lesson. Truth, once spoken, doesn't disappear. It takes root. Spring came late to Pine Ridge. Snow lingered in the shadows long after the calendar insisted it should be gone. Ice still rimmed the creek in the mornings, cracking softly as the sun climbed higher. The forest, however, was changing. Buds appeared on branches that had looked dead for years. Moss brightened along the rocks. Life returned carefully, as if testing whether it was safe. Ethan Carter noticed it the way he noticed most things now, quietly. He and Lucas stood at the edge of town, where pavement gave way to dirt, and dirt to trees. The same place Sarah had disappeared into months earlier. The same place where Ethan learned control was an illusion. and listening was not. Lucas kicked at the ground, hands buried in his jacket pockets. He was taller now, not much, but enough. Enough that Ethan felt it in his chest. "Dad," Lucas said, "can I ask you something?" "Always." Lucas hesitated. "If I see something wrong again, something everyone else pretends not to see." He swallowed. "What should I do?" Ethan felt the weight of the question settle into his bones. Once he would have answered with rules, with caution, with warnings about consequences. Those answers had almost cost him his son. He knelt eye to eye. "You tell the truth." His voice did not shake. "Even if your hands are shaking, even if people get angry, even if it costs you something." Lucas frowned. "What if it costs a lot?" Ethan thought of the badge, the job, the friends who still wouldn't meet his eyes. "Then," he said, "it probably matters." Lucas nodded slowly. "Okay." The wind moved through the trees, not strong, not gentle, just present. A sound rose from deep in the forest. A howl, low, steady. Time 400 mams. Familiar. Lucas's face lit up. Not excitement. Recognition. "That's Shadow," he said. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe." They didn't go closer. They didn't need to. Life in Pine Ridge went on, reshaped, but intact. The investigations ended quietly. Charges filed, settlements reached, boundaries drawn where contracts once ruled. The forest gained protection, written into law, not whispered. Ethan was never offered his badge back. He never asked. Instead, he taught night classes, safety, preparedness, how to notice what didn't belong. People didn't call him a hero. They called him honest. That was enough. One evening, something waited on the porch, a folded piece of bark, etched with a familiar symbol. 3 lines, branching from a circle, a message. "What does it mean again?" Lucas asked. Ethan traced the lines. "It means someone passed through," he said, "and wanted to be understood." They left the bark there, letting the wind take it when it was ready. Far beyond the town, the forest breathed. Trees grew, roots shifted, old scars healed, slowly, honestly. Somewhere, a girl walked where maps failed, and a wolf moved beside her. Listening. The forest did not forgive. It did not forget. It remembered. Every kindness, every cruelty, every choice to speak or stay silent. Ethan put his arm around Lucas's shoulders. The sun dipped behind the mountains. Whatever the world asked of his son next. Lucas would know what to do because the forest had taught them both the same lesson. Truth, once spoken, doesn't disappear. It takes root. Spring came late to Pine Ridge. Snow lingered in the shadows long after the calendar insisted it should be gone. Ice still rimmed the creek in the mornings, cracking softly as the sun climbed higher. The forest, however, was changing. Buds appeared on branches that had looked dead for years. Moss brightened along the rocks. Life returned carefully, as if testing whether it was safe. Ethan Carter noticed it the way he noticed most things now, quietly. He and Lucas stood at the edge of town, where pavement gave way to dirt, and dirt to trees. The same place Sarah had disappeared into months earlier. The same place where Ethan learned control was an illusion, and listening was not. Lucas kicked at the ground, hands buried in his jacket pockets. He was taller now, not much, but enough. Enough that Ethan felt it in his chest. "Dad," Lucas said, "can I ask you something?" "Always." Lucas hesitated. "If I see something wrong again, something everyone else pretends not to see." He swallowed. "What should I do?" Ethan felt the weight of the question settle into his bones. Once he would have answered with rules, with caution, with warnings about consequences. Those answers had almost cost him his son. He knelt eye to eye. "You tell the truth." His voice did not shake. "Even if your hands are shaking, even if people get angry, even if it costs you something." Lucas frowned. "What if it costs a lot?" Ethan thought of the badge, the job, the friends who still wouldn't meet his eyes. "Then," he said, "it probably matters." Lucas nodded slowly. "Okay." The wind moved through the trees, not strong, not gentle, just present. A sound rose from deep in the forest. A howl, low, steady. Time 400 mams. Familiar. Lucas's face lit up. Not excitement. Recognition. "That's Shadow," he said. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe." They didn't go closer. They didn't need to. Life in Pine Ridge went on, reshaped, but intact. The investigations ended quietly. Charges filed, settlements reached, boundaries drawn where contracts once ruled. The forest gained protection, written into law, not whispered. Ethan was never offered his badge back. He never asked. Instead, he taught night classes, safety, preparedness, how to notice what didn't belong. People didn't call him a hero. They called him honest. That was enough. One evening, something waited on the porch, a folded piece of bark, etched with a familiar symbol. 3 lines, branching from a circle, a message. "What does it mean again?" Lucas asked. Ethan traced the lines. "It means someone passed through," he said, "and wanted to be understood." They left the bark there, letting the wind take it when it was ready. Far beyond the town, the forest breathed. Trees grew, roots shifted, old scars healed, slowly, honestly. Somewhere, a girl walked where maps failed, and a wolf moved beside her, listening. The forest did not forgive. It did not forget. It remembered every kindness, every cruelty, every choice to speak or stay silent. Ethan put his arm around Lucas's shoulders. The sun dipped behind the mountains. Whatever the world asked of his son next, Lucas would know what to do because the forest had taught them both the same lesson. Truth, once spoken, doesn't disappear. It takes root.